Hello. Today we're going to be talking about fat. What do you think of when you hear the word fat? Some of us think about being overweight, carrying that extra pound. We think about olive oil or canola oil, refined fats, or we think about avocados, nuts. These are all different types of fat. So today we're going to be looking at some of our key concepts. Obesity. What are the risks for being obese, for carrying around that extra weight? What are some of the risk factors for that? Well, it increases your risk for cancer, also increases your risk for other diseases such as diabetes or high blood pressure. We're talking about cholesterol, the good and the bad types of cholesterol. Good forms of fat, looking at high fat versus low fat diets. And then talking about omega-3 fatty acids. Should we be getting that? Is fish is a common source, and it's also very widely publicized in the media. Fish as a source of omega-3, and it is a source, but we're going to talk about that versus getting it from a plant-based source or diet, and the advantages of that versus disadvantages. So, key concepts. So what are the risks for too much fat or being overweight or obese? Well, it increases your risk for diabetes, also risk for cancer, especially breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, high blood pressure, heart disease, obstructive sleep apnea, depression, and low self-esteem can all be risk factors from obesity. Americans suffer from the following health problems. 82% have at least one risk factor for heart disease. 81% take at least one medication during the week. 50% take at least one prescription drug during the week. And 65% of adults are overweight. This is information taken from Dr. Campbell's book called The China Study. As you can see, health is a big problem. Poor health is a big problem that a lot of people suffer from. And hopefully today we can look at some good, healthy sources and healthier alternatives to try and help improve your health. Epidemic of lifestyle-related illnesses in the U.S. 150 million have dangerously high cholesterol levels. 50 million have high blood pressure. 63 million have low back pain, and low back pain is a significant reason that very common reason that people call into work for sick leave. 23 million had heart disease in 2001. 70,000 died from heart disease in 2000. And 550 died from cancer in 2000. This is also information taken from Dr. Campbell's book called The China Study. Obesity increases the risk for breast cancer. Postmenopausal and obese women have a 12-time increased risk for breast cancer versus their thin or normal weight counterparts. So we're going to be talking about cholesterol next. The cholesterol we get from animal products can be very damaging. You can see from the pictures on the slide, the cholesterol that you get can cause inflammation, and the inflammation that you get actually damages the inside of your artery wall, and that artery wall, it damages it, and then also fat actually can deposit and build up underneath that wall or in the lining of that wall. And as if you continue to eat animal products and continue that inflammatory response that your body gets to trying to deal with the cholesterol, more and more fat will build up into the artery in what it forms what is called a fatty capsule. And sometimes if that capsule can rupture or break, and that is what can lead to a heart attack or a stroke, because basically if that all that fat that's deposited in the wall, if that breaks open, then that vessel will clot off, and that will lead to, like I said, either a heart attack or a stroke where it stops the blood flow to that area. Some sources of bad fat or fats that we don't want to get saturated animal products such as meat, poultry, eggs, dairy products, trans fat, partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, a lot of what you'll find in baked goods or fried foods, and then dietary sources of animal products. So not only the saturated fat, the bad fat, but you can also get the cholesterol that we talked about that can cause that inflammation. From high-fat diets, you can also, along with the high-fat diets, a lot of times you can get the cholesterol that goes with it, like from whole milk, the amount of cholesterol you can get, 33 milligrams, chicken, eggs, beef, we get per serving 331 milligrams. And this is a table looking at your cholesterol ratio. So basically it looks at your good cholesterol versus your bad cholesterol. So your HDL, which is your high density lipoprotein, which is your good cholesterol, where you want that to be higher, and then your low density or your LDL with the bad cholesterol. So taking the ratio, if your ratio is less than 4, you have a very low risk for coronary heart disease. Versus if your ratio is between 4 and 6, where most American men and women fall, you have a moderate likelihood for having heart disease. Versus greater than 6, if you have a very low HDL or low good cholesterol and very high bad cholesterol, if your ratio is greater than 6, that puts you at a very high risk or very high likelihood for having coronary heart disease and dying from coronary artery disease. Vascular damage from oxidized cholesterol. So they did a study where they gave oxidized cholesterol, which is basically cholesterol, any of the cholesterol you can get from cooked meat, from butter, from any baked goods that have eggs or milk in it, cheese, that kind of stuff, oxidized cholesterol. Anyway, they fed those to rabbits and monkeys, and then they looked at their arteries, and just within 24 hours, they had vascular damage from that inflammatory response, the body's inflammatory response to that oxidized cholesterol. Basically, that oxidized cholesterol sets off an inflammatory cascade in the body. Versus if they gave them pure unoxidized cholesterol, showed no vascular damage. So a lot of these diseases that we see have to do with the inflammation that is produced in our body. So foods containing harmful cholesterol byproducts, and they looked at the most damaging sources of cholesterol that they fed these different sources of cholesterol to monkeys, and then they looked at their arteries, and they looked pancake mixes, custard mixes, Parmesan cheese, lard. All of these caused significant damage and started developing plaques in the monkey's arteries or aorta. Harmful fats. So animal products, milk, eggs, cheese, saturated fats such as butter, Crisco, any fats that's solid at room temperature, trans fats such as you get from fried foods, processed baked goods, versus health. We're going to talk about the healthy fats, animal products. So whole plant products like olives, nuts, avocados, and then omega-3 fatty acids, walnuts, and flaxseed are great sources for that. Monounsaturated fats, olives, nuts, seeds, polyunsaturated, you get that from nuts and seeds. And then, like I said, the sources for omega-3 fatty acids, flax seeds and walnuts. Healthy sources for fat. So in the Adventist study, they actually did, people did better and lived longer, and had better health from eating a handful of nuts each day. So this is a great source of, you used to say, well, it has so much fat, and that eating that instead of eating butter or milk or meat is a great way to get healthy fat into your diet. replacing that instead of those some of the animal products. Also eating healthy sources of fat. Another healthy source is flaxseed, getting 2 tablespoons of flax meal each day. And not only do you get, is it a good healthy fat, but you also get your omega-3 fatty acids. And then eating olives, whole olives and avocados on your salad instead of replacing that, instead of using salad dressing. So try and avoid all refined oils. And if you need to, if you're used to cooking with lots of oil, try and, instead of pouring a bunch of oil in the pan, just wiping off the pan with some oil or using a bit of a cooking spray so the food doesn't stick. And then replacing basically the refined oils with the whole oils, like using a whole olive instead of the olive oil. The problem with refined plant oils or plant foods or fats is they carry the risk for weight gain. And then also some things like safflower and corn oil can increase risk for melanoma. The best principle is eating whole plant foods eaten whole. Another key concept, number 4, watch out for the hidden fats. And basically this is 2% milk. So you think, oh, well, I'm drinking 2% instead of, full milk or regular fat milk. The problem is you look at the calories. If you have 2% milk, there's 122 calories, but the calories from fat are 41. So if you take the 41, divide it by the 22 times 100, 33% of your calories are coming from fat. Healthy fat, so part of a low-fat diet. So it's not good to try and avoid all fats in your diet. You need fat. You need, especially some of the omega-3s. You need that for your brain and your eyes, and also to help decrease your risk. And we'll talk about that for some of the other diseases. But you need to eat the fats in their whole plant form. So some sources for monounsaturated fats: olives, avocados, nuts, polyunsaturated nuts and seeds, and then omega-3 such as flax seeds and walnuts. So omega-3s are necessary for normal brain function, development, and growth. It can also help reduce the risk for the following diseases: heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. It also can help increase your good cholesterol or your HDL cholesterol. Section of omega-3. 50% of the brain and retina cell membranes are made up of omega-3 fatty acids. Here are some plant foods containing high omega-3s. We're talking about flax and walnuts. As you can see, they're very high in omega-3 fatty acids, as though you can also get it from things like even spinach and almonds contain omega-3 fatty acids. Or look down at this graph is hard to see, but look at that bottom part of the graph, and you can see how high walnuts are in omega-3. Disorders that may benefit from omega-3 fatty acids, things like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, depression, and it can also possibly help in the prevention of breast and colon cancer. So the last concept that we're going to talk about today is fish. Fish are a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, but the problem is they carry risks that you don't get if you're getting the omega-3 from a plant-based source. Fish, are they the next milk? People say, oh, milk is so good because it has all calcium, and there is an advantage. They did studies where the people that were eating red meat, they started eating fish, and they did lower the risk for cancer from breast and colon and prostate. They also lowered the risk for autoimmune diseases, and they had lower cholesterol if they switched from eating red meat to eating fish. But the problem with fish is it has some of its own risk. And they also did studies where they took people that were vegan and then they had them start eating fish, and their cholesterol levels jumped. and their inflammatory response jumped. So I think that you can get omega-3s from other sources besides fish. And also, we'll talk about some of the risks from unfortunately from pollution and stuff that you get with eating fish. So another quick look at that diagram we saw earlier. We're going to look at the salmon versus flaxseed, and you can see that flaxseed has very high levels of omega-3 fatty acids. This is a place where Charlotte and I went down in Florida, and it was beautiful water, just absolutely pristine. We went canoeing down there, and you would imagine that eating fish, I mean, the water is perfectly crystal clear, that this should be a great place to catch fish and eat fish. But unfortunately, this is a sign that we took, a picture of a sign that we took in that area where we were canoeing, and it says, "Fish contaminated with mercury, do not eat." And that, I think, unfortunately, is a problem with fish and some of the fish oils. This is a diagram taken from Dr. Nedley's book called Proof Positive. And basically, some of the problems with fish, it can worsen blood sugar levels in diabetics. Large amounts can be dangerously prolong the blood clotting time. Fish oil can be expensive. Large amounts cause vitamin overload or vitamin deficiency, can lead to an increase in body weight. And unfortunately, seafood can be a large reservoir for infection diseases, and then also the toxins from contaminated water actually can concentrate it in the fatty tissue of fish. So just another slide from Dr. Neil Nedley's book called Proof Positive. Just looking at the number of reported fish kills caused from pollution. And this is just an example of the biomagnification of DDT insecticide. So basically, they took a sample of lake water, and in the lake water itself, the DDT was 0.02 parts per million. And if you take that, from that same water, the concentration in a carnivorous fish jumped up to 2,500. Just the concentration of that same pesticide into the fish's fatty tissue. And then just fish contamination compounds, toxins found in their fatty tissue they found pesticides, chlorinated hydrocarbons, mercury, dioxin, and fish may contain heavy metals, lead, petroleum. So a great alternative or another source for getting the omega-3s, you can get it from your walnuts, from flaxseed, and people say, "Oh, I don't want to eat nuts because they're so high in fat." But if you replace nuts with some of your other sources of fat, eating a whole plant-based diet instead of eating the refined, eating the olive instead of eating the olive oil, you get a lot more benefits, and your body, even though it is high fat, your body doesn't absorb as much of the fat. Remember, whole plant foods eaten whole, if possible. Thank you.